South winds have made fishing conditions difficult in the state of Texas recently. But don't worry, our guides have the best tips on how to beat the heat and the wind. So get ready because we have your weekend reports here on the Texas Insider Fishing Report.
Welcome to the Texas Insider Fishing Report. Presented by Yamaha.
Welcome back to the Texas Insider Fishing Report. We're your hosts, Brie Gabrielle and Captain Rick Murphy, with a ton of great reports from your trusty captains around the state. Rick, welcome back from Alaska. We missed you around here.
I'm gonna tell you,
tell us all.
It was the coolest trip ever.
Yes.
So we took this beautiful cruise. We flew into Vancouver and we made 4 or 5 stops in Alaska. So we started off in Vancouver, and certainly the first night we had this beautiful sunset or sunrise, and then we went fishing on Kathy's actual birthday. We went with Colin, Kathy, Ridge, and I, and Juno. And what we did is we were just catching salmon. We had a bear chase us down the creek.
Wow.
It was the coolest thing ever. There's the happy family after our day of fly fishing. And then the next place we went, we did the railroad, the White Pass Railroad, and it was raining and foggy, and it seemed like the train was going to run off the cliff, which is normal. Me and Mama, they put the caboose on the end and the engines on the other end, and then they switched it when we got to the top of the mountain. So we were going the first car going up and the last car coming home. And then obviously you can't go on a cruise without going and seeing all the beautiful glaciers.
Yeah.
We had 3 or 4 different stops in Glacier National Park, and just the colors were just so epic. But I'm gonna tell you, the one thing that everybody loved the most, Brie, was the crazy shopping that we had to do with the mother. We went on this cool bike ride. It was 14 miles uphill and 14 miles downhill, a lot easier coming back. But as we were almost back to Anchorage, we ran into this monster bull moose. It ran across, that's 30 feet away. So it's just, the wildlife in Alaska is crazy. And how do you not go to Alaska without experiencing Dungeness crabs? And we had all the crabs. We had king crab, snow crab, the queen crab, and then the Dungeness. And
there's a queen crab right there.
Oh, yeah.
Miss Kathy.
But I tell you what, she had the best time. What a great birthday for us to be 10 days on a cruise and vacation and, room service.
Are you nice and rested, ready to be back to work?
I'm ready. Let's do this thing.
Okay, well, I know Dave at the CCA Workbench missed you so much. So, Dave, what are you and Rick talking about over there today?
Crabs.
Crabs.
I've never met a crustacean I didn't like, as you can tell.
Cute. Very
butter and crabs and those northern shellfish. You gotta love them.
Yeah, well, that's what
cold water
you'll be doing
shellfish.
Yeah. I think the whole crew needs to go on a crab fest.
There you have it. We're all going to Alaska. I love it. Thanks, Rick. Okay, let's start off in the Upper Coast region where it's been windy city, but Captain Caleb Harp has some suggestions to help you get on them. Give us some suggestions, Captain.
That's it. Well, the wind's still been a battle up here this week, but really the only thing we can do is just fish in protected areas. So that's been a must. But the redfish action is still going to be the best option for staying out of that wind, since most of the trout are in the middle of the bays right now. And in Sabine Lake, there are many different areas that offer protection from the wind. Depending on that direction, you can hide in some points in Sabine Pass, which is the ship channel over there, and the intercoastal, throwing popping corks with gulp, crankbaits, or spinnerbaits. On the north end of the lake, around the Natchez River, Hickory Cove, and Sabine River, you can find some protected areas throwing soft plastics and gulp as well. The Louisiana shoreline over there is also holding some nice reds around the mouths of bayous and over clamshell if you get that wind right. And in Galveston, the wind has still been blowing a little too hard for the open water schools, but fishing in marsh ponds, back lakes around Greens, Karankawa, and down there in East Bay, it's still been good throwing topwaters, gulp, and spinnerbaits if you can get that tide high. Then also fishing down the rocks upstream in the upper Galveston Bay complex around San Jacinto, all that stuff up north. Has still been a consistent player throwing shallow diving crankbaits and gulp. And if the wind isn't screaming 30 miles an hour like it has been, you can find some nice redfish in the grass on the north shoreline of West Bay. And there's a picture there of a couple clients with 2 nice Sabine reds from, one of these windy days. But also the trout fishing, has still been kind of subpar. But if you do fish smart and patiently, there are still some fish to catch. With the hard winds that we've had this week, the trout fishing has been a little challenging due to the fact that the biomass of those fish are in the deeper parts in the middle of the bay. So they're a little hard to get to. But if you do get that opportunity in East Bay, drifting the reefs will still produce a few fish on pepper, Hannah's, and deep reef, throwing soft plastics on an 1/8-ounce jig head. Like I talked about last week, the fish are still high on the water column, so just throw it out and burn it back. They need to stay up high with all the shad that we've got. And then in West Bay, there have been some good catches coming from the middle of the bay over at Worcester Shell, just drifting around out there, and also some wade fishermen around San Luis Pass are still catching some over there. And then whenever the wind does die down and we get some of those dead calm August days that we are overdue for, the fishing in Galveston, the fishing around the Caswells in the middle of Trinity Bay, my favorite, should produce a few good catches. So get ready for that. And then going offshore, Carl, our buddy Carl from Salty Dolphin Charters over there out of Surfside Marina, said that they haven't really had the chance to get out much because of the ripping south winds and the thunderstorms, which has kept everyone from running out too deep. But he says that the nearshore bite is still producing bull reds, Jack Crevalle, sharks, and opportunities at king mackerel and Spanish mackerel. So fishing from the jetties out to about 5 to 6 miles offshore, as far as you can really get, is producing plenty of these fish anchored up, throwing out a chum bag and throwing out, cut bait or whatever. And he said that if the sharks become pretty heavy, make sure you switch over to a steel leader, which will also work good for kings and Spanish mackerel with those teeth. But if the wind does get calm and you are able to go a little further into the 5 to 30 mile range, then, there's a lot more kingfish hanging out around those structures as well. And also, he said that whenever the wind does drop and that water clarity does improve, the ling bite should still be rock and rolling on visible structure. And for recreational anglers, the red snapper season is still open, and the bite has still been great in 100 foot of water. And then also from the 40 to 100 mile range, Carl says they're still catching some nice size of Dorado on floating structure and trolling around bottom structure. And then the amberjack bite is still going strong on live and cut bait fishing over structure as well. And he says that they're also still catching some nice blackfin tuna behind shrimp boats in the 140 to 200 foot range. And then also, let's kind of mix it up a little bit, even though we really don't target these guys too much, from the 200 foot and beyond, there have been a few sailfish and marlin reports coming in, so hopefully that'll develop soon. But, this bad weather should get out of here by the end of this week, and we'll get back to normal. Carl says all these fish are still out there when they actually get the chance to get out. So let's just pray for a little better weather, and we'll be able to get right back to normal.
All right, well, thanks for batting first up for us this week, Caleb. We're going to take a look at the Upper Coast CCA hotspots. He says inshore fishing for redfish in Sabine Pass in the intercoastals of Sabine and the back lakes and marsh ponds in Galveston Bay have been the way to go to stay out of the wind. And then offshore, with the weather conditions being what they are, fish the near shore. From the near shore to the jetties and a couple miles out have been a better option. Bull redfish, jack, sharks, kingfish, Spanish mackerels, anchored up with chum bags out, and cut bait has been the best way to catch them.
All right, Rick, Johnny Geis is our next captain in line. If you're having the bass blues, he's here to pick you up and put you on Lake Fork and Bob Sandlin. So Johnny, give us some lip.
Hello, Rick and Brie. How y'all today?
Good. How you doing, Johnny?
Well, pretty good. This time of year, fishing gets kind of tough up here in North Texas. In August, the bass and the crappie, they start to get a little finicky. They get a little tough to pattern. You catch them during the day. They seem to have a very short feeding periods. Usually they're right there at the first few hour daylight, and about 30 minutes right before dark is about the best time to get a few bites. I like to get bites, and most of my clients enjoy catching something, even if it's not a 10-pound bass. I have a lot of clients or family and kids type business, and nothing's worse than trying to spend a whole hot day in August heat chunking and whining without many bites. So what do you do to keep the youngsters' attention? Make sure they enjoy a fishing trip. But I put a lot of smiles on faces up there by targeting the always voracious bluegills. We got a lot of them. The bluegills, they're sporty little fish, and although you don't catch many over a pound, they're real hard fighters on real light tackle. The sunfish or brim, they come in several different subspecies here, like we call red perch, red ears, warmouths, goggle eyes, and the copper-nosed brim is about the biggest one of the bunch. If the bass and crappie are slow, I can always get into some catching by targeting the bluegills. They live almost all over the lake. They're near the shoreline, covered in the weeds. They're around boathouses and piers, and especially around the crappie brush piles. So all you need is some light line, 4 to 6 pound, a light action spinning rod or spin cast for the kids. Most important thing to use is a small hook. I see people using way too big a hook all the time. They don't catch them. Use an 8 or 10 light wire hook with a small split shot crimped about 3 or 4 inches above the hook, and you're ready to fish. When the brim spawn, they usually start making colonies of beds in shallow water starting in April. They'll spawn several times a year, and you can find the deeper beds all the way through August. It's not uncommon to catch 50 or 100 brim from a single bedding area. When the brim are shallow, 1 to 5 foot, I enjoy using a small cork above the lead and the hook, and nothing's more fun than watching the cork disappear and catching a bunch of bluegills that way. Once those brim move out deeper and round boathouses, piers, and brush piles, the most effective way is to tight line your rig. The bite can be very easy to detect, very hard to detect. You only feel a light tick, and sometimes that brim will, catching a lot of brim will improve your bass fishing too. You really learn what a bite feels like, and when you use a drop shot, you'll be a lot better fisherman. Let's talk about the best brim baits. I've always caught brim on all sorts of artificial natural baits, but crickets and worms are the best natural baits, while real small jigs, flies, Berkeley Gulp products are most effective artificial baits. Here's the least expensive and most effective of all brim baits, and that's just a regular old earthworm. You can dig your own. You can buy them at a local bait shop, usually around $5 a box, and you don't need much worm on your hook, so it's best to cut up the worm into small pieces, put a 1/4 inch or less on your hook, and you'll usually find you'll catch several brim on the same piece of worm. So I like to use bluegills myself to target these giant bass on fork as live bait. They're also excellent table fare, and you can scale them and cook them whole, or you can fillet the larger ones. And there's nothing better than a plate of fried brim, French fries, and hush puppies. Got a couple pictures here. My sister, Mary Jo Gray, was up this week. We caught a couple of real nice representative brim right there, and a bunch of them, and that was a lot of fun.
That does look like fun. Go ahead, let's talk about some bass fishing, Bub.
Okay, largemouth bass over at Lake Bob Sandlin. It's fishing much better than usual this time of year, and the recent tournament catches seem to be a little heavier than normal. Recent Tuesday night events are producing 18 to 20 pound stringers from a 6 to 10 o'clock p.m. event on Tuesday nights. Lake Bob may be enjoying a new infusion of quality-sized bass from an adjoining Lake Monticello. Lake Bob Sandlin is located about 15 miles south of Mount Pleasant, Texas, and it's one of 3 lakes that are all connected to each other by a dam. Cypress Springs is a lake to the northwest of Sandlin, relatively clear reservoir. Got a good crop of bass also. Has an overflow structure which drains water into Sandlin when the lake level gets above pool. Now, Lake Monticello, I've covered it before. It was a coal-powered electrical plant reservoir up into January this year. It stopped operation. Well, Monticello water temps now used to be always above normal being a power plant, but since January, that water is now the same temps surrounding the lakes. The gates of the dam were open, and Monticello drains now into Bob Sandlin, so that's what's happened to Bob. Monticello's 4 foot low, and Bob Sandlin's only about 1 foot low, but they're both the same level. So it appears that the gates opening into Lake Bob allowed some of the fish and bait to drain from Monticello down into Bob Sandlin, and that's what's causing the increase in size of tournament catches. Also catching some white bass up in Monticello, so they're coming out of Bob Sandlin, moving into the lake above the plain there. The lower water levels at Monticello has made fishing much tougher this time of year due to a lot of shallow vegetation, dry ground. But Lake Bob's a recipient of the new water, the new bass, and this may explain the better tournament results. The larger fish are showing up big time.
Tell me about the photo, Johnny.
21 bridge makes up the mid-lake above this road for the upper end. Earlier this year, we had good success on the west of the railroad bridge, which is just above the dam from Monticello. Got a lot of recent rains this week, put a lot of fresh water in East Texas Lake, and I'm expecting to see even better fishing on Bob Sandlin.
Hey, Johnny.
Big worms and shaky heads are good.
Johnny, tell me about this photo, bub. We're out of time.
Okay, if you haven't fished Bob Sandlin, you need to get out there. Here's a picture of Dylan and son Mason Lee, the 9.70 bass that caught in one of these Tuesday night events. Pretty nice fish. Nice
job. All right, we'll talk to you next week. Thank you so much. We're going to go ahead and take a look at the upper fresh region hotspots. He said Lake Fork, the black bass are fair on flutter spoons, football jigs, deep Crappie are fair on minnows on the brush piles, and then Lake Bob Sandlin, the black bass are good on Carolina rigged worms, hollow body frogs, and shaky head worms. Crappie and white bass are fair on minnows.
That was a nice catch there.
Yeah, man.
Okay, got it.
It sounded like boy Johnny would want to talk about those bluegills and brims.
Yep, he loved them. All right, we've got your Middle Coast Region Captain next here on the Texas Insider Fishing Report. But first, we're looking at what Dave Ferrell has for us today at the CCA Workbench for Academy Rigs and Techniques.
Seeing as how all those bass are going deep, we're going to tell you how to go after them. Go deep for the big bass in the summertime.
All right, we'll
Get away
be
from
going
the
deep
heat.
when we come back.
All right, I like it.
The Texas Insider Fishing Report is brought to you by Yamaha. Reliability starts here. The American Fishing Tackle Company. Any fish, any water. Since 1958. Guy Harvey, marine wildlife artist and conservationist. And CCA Texas, a leader in marine conservation.
Yamaha's 4.2-liter V6 offshore 4-strokes. For those that like their V6 lighter, faster, and stronger. Setting new standards for power, efficiency, speed, and lightweight. Built for the rigors of offshore boating. Packed with Yamaha's legendary reliability. And now Yamaha's 4.2-liter V6 4-strokes offer a choice between digital or mechanical controls to match your rigging preference. Yamaha. Reliability starts here.
Remember the glory days of gasoline? It's just not made the same anymore.
Kick your gas into gear with StarTron. Pump up the performance in all of your engines. Cure the problems of ethanol with the power of enzymes. And maximize your mileage every time you drive. Kickstart your engines with StarTron.
Outside is a bully. There are bears screaming fleet-footed waters. Arrogant mountains. Goliaths. 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 And 100 other excuses to stay inside. But there are ways to deal with bullies.
CCA is the largest marine conservation group of its kind. With 70,000 members in Texas, CCA's mission is dedicated to conserve, promote, and enhance the present and future availability of our coastal resources for the benefit and enjoyment of the general public. So if you care about the health of our Texas coastal resources, join CCA today by going to their website, ccatexas.org, and help them make a difference. Use the promo code REDFISH to receive your free hat with your membership. CCA, the leader in marine conservation.
Well, Dave, I wanted to tell you I missed the rigs and techniques here at the CCA Workbench last week. But
Well, I'm sure you were learning some new ones up there.
I did. I
Running
did
from
learn
the bear.
some cool techniques. Exactly.
Always run from the bear.
Always.
You're not supposed to run from the bear.
I was okay because I just knew I could outrun my wife, Kathy, so I was okay with it.
Well, you know, in the summertime, we were talking earlier about, you know, how the bass will go down and deep in the summertime. And what we have to do is we have to get down there after them. And what you have to remember, you know, all fishing is tied together. You know, what you do in one place really has a lot to do with what you do in another place. And it's especially true when you're out in the middle of a lake. It's like being out in the middle of an ocean, you know. And you're not just going to go out there and just start fishing. You're going to look for things that is different. Because, you know, the middle of a lake is just like an ocean. It's a big empty in most parts of it. Right. But we're looking for is the places where the bass will congregate. Usually places where the bait congregates, which, you know, we're looking for humps, you know, big mounds, brush pile, an old road bed,
riprap,
an old canals, you know, anything that's different that's, you know, comes up off the bottom and will maybe hold bass or bait. And just like offshore, it's especially great if that piece of structure has a current on it. Because if you have current, that means you have, usually the bait's going to be there too. Right. And, or it's going to be coming by soon. And that's what those bass will do. They'll lay up near that cover, near the current, and hope that it brings something to them. And that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to get something down there to them. And, you know, a lot of times when you're fishing in shallow water, you know, you can see your bait and stuff, but when you're in deep water, you can't. So you have to really figure out what your bait's doing. You know, you just can't. You have to visualize in your head what's going on down there.
Right.
You know, and being in contact with the bottom most of the time is the best way to figure out where you are and what your bait is doing down there, because you can feel it. You know, you can feel how fast you're bumping along the bottom, or you can feel if the bottom has weeds or stuff on it, and maybe you need to crank up a little bit. You know, being in touch with the bottom is really the only contact that you're going to have out there in that open water. You know, you're not like you're bouncing off stumps and stuff inside. You know, you could see that, but when you're out there, you're going to have to just rely on yourself a little bit more. And we'll throw the best, probably the best thing, or the most commonly used lure in deep bait is a Carolina rig, and that's this one right here. And that's when you have a weight, you know, and a swivel, and then your bait is floating up beyond that. And this is a pre-made one. You can get these pre-made, or you can make them yourself. You can just buy yourself a swivel and put a sliding weight on here, and you don't have. And actually, that'll allow the bass to run off a little bit like a fish finder rig without feeling this weight. But otherwise, this will be the weight will be on the bottom, and you can feel it as it's dragging down the bottom, and this thing will be floating up above it just a little bit, moving along.
Because the plastic with no weight obviously allows it to want to float up, correct?
Or it'll crawl along behind it.
Right.
You know, if the hook's too big or whatever, it'll crawl along behind it. But it's fairly weedless rigged like that. And that's a great way to fish in deep water. Also, as Johnny Geis was saying, you know, the drop shot.
Right.
And that's when your bait, you have a weight on the very bottom, and then a hook tied into the middle.
So the weight's down here anchored on the bottom.
Correct, and it'll be bouncing as well. And once you get that thing down to the bottom, you can just jiggle this thing.
Look at how much action
And
it
does. It adds a lot of action. And if you can figure out how deep you want to make this, so that this your stick bait or even a swim bait or whatever is just above the height of the grass, and you can have, you know, that thing bouncing along, and it's just sitting out there all by itself alone. You know, another great thing to use, obviously, are big lipped crankbaits. They're a lot of fun. You know, you make a long cast so you can get those crankbaits down in that strike zone. You want them to be, you know, close to the bottom, bouncing along the bottom. Lipless plugs like a rattle trap. I've caught a lot of bass in dark water on that ugly green and yellow chartreuse.
But it makes noise.
It makes a ton of noise. You can cast it a mile, and it goes deep. If you let it sink, it'll go all the way to the bottom as well.
Rod tip down when you're retrieving?
Exactly, and it's a steady retrieve. Or even with those rattle traps, if you give them one of those little, you know, shoves back a little bit and make it buzz a little bit, they'll hit it a lot of times right when it stops.
Pretty work over here. Time flew by. It
I know.
Really did.
We had so much more stuff to talk about.
Well, we'll do it again.
Yeah,
we'll just pick up where we left off. There'll be Rigs and Techniques Plan
Part
B.
2.
Yes, you guys always have stuff to talk about over there, that's for sure. The tides are sure changing in the Middle Coast region, and Captain Bink Grimes is on the line to tell you all about it. Go for it, Bink.
Our east-southwest winds have finally allowed tides to swell along the Middle Coast, something we've been waiting for months. Many captains, myself, have commented we've never seen tides this low for so long, the spring and summer. But finally, they showed up this week. And the influx of water has been good for the topwater bite on the shorelines. Another foot of cool water on the showgrass shorelines encourages big trout to follow those mullets to the knee-deep shallows, where a super spook, a skitter walk, or a top dog, you know, goes to work. That early topwater bite has a lot to do with the tides from the Port O'Connor jetty and Pascaval that generates bait and floods West Matagorda Bay and the Espiritu Santo Bay with new trout coming in from the surf through the pass. Guy Lynn Smith said he's been on trout to 23 inches on live bait and topwaters over sand and grass. He's been working within a few miles of the pass and picking his locales according to the incoming tide schedule. He's been working the south end of San Antonio Bay as well over shell and grassy potholes. And then at Matagorda, guy Tommy Alexander said there's lots of 5 to 6 pound trout being caught and released in East Bay while waiting and drifting. We've had light winds like a 10-day stretch last week, and it allowed us to fish that deep shell and wade those mid-bay reefs when the water was green. Anytime there's water clarity in East Matagorda Bay, there's a chance for a big trout, and that's what's been happening. Around Palacios, the deep reefs around the Sucker Shrimp Boat and Coon Islands produce trout on live shrimp under a popping cork. Then Half Moon Reef has been solid as well, with light winds. Guide Ray Sexton said the upper end of Tres Palacios Bay has improved its tide swell this week. Waders there have been throwing live croakers and topwaters on the edges of the shallow reefs. And in Rockport, Rhett Price said croakers and piggy perch have been good in about 2 to 4 foot of water on the north end of Aransas Bay. Shell has held most of the fish, but artificial guys are chucking those new Mariluro, Texas double Ds and Homewrecker soft plastics. Early in the day has been the best bite on those plastics. There's a photo there of green water in East Bay. It allows those good catches of trout like this 5-pounder here that was caught and released. Just numerous 5 to 6 pound trout being caught right now and released in East Matagorda Bay. We'll go to redfish. Those bigger tides, man, it's helped our redfish bite in West Matagorda Bay. Guide Al Garrison caught limits while working the grass along the north shoreline. And some of those birds are working over school and redfish. You'll see birds hovering, probably 5 foot above the water along the grass line. They're usually following, a school of redfish, 15 to 25 in the school. It's a pretty good indicator. Then Guy Brett Swinney's been posting up with finger mullet on the mud flat. He's catching limits of redfish on the incoming tide. Lynn Smith said those redfish are showing along the shorelines in Port O'Connor and San Antonio Bay with those bigger tides. And those guys that are trout fishing and throwing those croakers up against the grass, they're also getting redfish. Those Rockport redfish, they're showing up in the back lakes around Allen's Bight on small topwaters and gulfs. And the Estes Flat's been good for reds on mullet and live shrimp. And some of those guys are taking airboats in the very back lakes, in knee-deep water and getting out and throwing mullet at redfish in Rockport and doing well. Then the bull redfish, they've been showing around the mouth of the San Bernard River. Guide Chris Caldwell there at Sargent, he's been playing with those bull redfish on top waters. They've just been crushing plugs. And most of the time when it gets back, those hooks are so mangled you can't even use them again. Just some really, really big redfish. We'll go offshore. Matagorda Captain Quebec, man, he said those wahoo are hanging in 250 to 300 foot of water on trolling rapalas and ballyhoos. There hadn't been much of a weed line, but they've been trolling shrimp boats, and the fish, the 30 pounds were caught this week. Tarpon numbers remain strong. The Gulf roughed up a bit, but still finding some tarpon on coon pops. Those cobia are hanging around the shrimp boats and platforms, and live bait's been regularly, gobbled up by those curious lings. Kingfish are all over the place. Our star tournament leaderboard got a 66-pound king on it. I really don't think it's going to be knocked off the board, so that's just a big old kingfish. You see the photo there. There's a nice wahoo fishing 30 pounds. That was caught on Quebec's boat last week.
All right, thank you so much, Bink. We're going to go ahead and take a look at the hot spots from the Middle Coast region. Bink says inshore, trout are good on top waters in San Antonio Bay, on the edges of the reefs, on skidder walks and top dogs. Trout are found on the flats near Pass Carvalho on the incoming tide. And then offshore, wahoo are good offshore behind the shrimp boats while trolling Rapala X-Raps and wire-rigged ballyhoos.
That was a nice wahoo picture right there.
Yeah, you saw the stripes.
Yes, I did. Rick, let's talk a little bit about CCA in a different light this week.
Let's do.
CCA Texas is helping fund a 3,000 square foot building at the Sea Center Texas Hatchery to be used exclusively for flounder spawning, expected to be finished by next spring. It will be climate controlled as water temperature is essential in the early stages of flounder, eggs, and larvae, and the hope is to raise and release 100,000 flounder fingerlings into the Texas bays by the second year. This flounder spawning program will complement the millions of trout and redfish fingerlings Sea Center releases every year into the Texas Bay systems. That's pretty cool.
That's
and
awesome.
Very different.
You know, I wish that in Florida they could do as well with fish hatcheries as they do in Texas.
Yeah,
Texas, they're the king of fish hatcheries. They really are.
All right, stay with us, Texans. We're heading south and checking out our Middle Fresh and Lower Coast regions next, right here on the Texas Insider Fishing Report. Stay with us, and remember, for all things fishing in Texas, visit our website, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and view and tag us on Instagram. We'll be right back.
The Texas Insider Fishing Report is brought to you by Contender Boats, always in the game. Bass Assassin and Saltwater Assassin, the best lures, period. CCA Star, fishing fun for giant prizes and scholarships, and Costa Sunglasses. See what's out there.
An entirely new species of extreme predator is moving offshore. The Yamaha 5.6-liter V8 XTO offshore outboard. Extreme big block thrust and power in the industry's first direct injection 4-stroke. Quiet, efficient, powerful, and proven Yamaha reliability. More than an outboard, it's a fully integrated power system. The all-new Yamaha V8 XTO offshore.
As close as you're gonna get to a sure thing for catching billfish is Guatemala.
They're here, man. This has been a 20-year run, buddy. These things haven't left. There's no cycle.
When it comes to sail fishing, this is the real deal.
The amount of sailfish here is ridiculous.
Today's Power Pole tip of the week, we're going to talk about customer service. I've been with Power Pole since 2000, and from a tiny little company to a big corporation, the one thing I can tell you about Power Pole is their customer service has been second to none. I'm on the water 300 days a year. I'm at tackle stores. I'm doing fishing seminars. I'm at boat shows. No matter where I am, folks are coming up to me and they're sharing their wonderful experience they've had either visiting the factory, talking to somebody at the counter, talking to someone on the phone, or through email. And if that's not enough, now you can download the Sea Monster app, which enables you, no matter where you are in the world, to diagnose your power pole with the Sea Monster app, send the info to a service tech at Power Pole, and they're gonna have your problem solved for you. And that's today's Power Pole tip of the week.
Power Pole tip of the week. Great customer service. There you have it. All right, Matt Lozier in the Star Tri-Middle Fresh region is here this weekend to tell you Lake Livingston and Same Rayburn is where it's at. So Matt, tell us where them fishies are at.
All right, Brie, I sure will. I'm going to start off talking about Lake Livingston, and I'm going to talk about two species down there this week. The first one being black bass. I'm hearing that some guys are catching some pretty nice fish down there, and they're catching them by fishing boat docks in about 3 to 5 foot of water out on the main lake. And they're using Texas rig creature bait to catch those bass. Like something like the Bass Assassin skunk ape would be a good one to use for that. And a real key to this pattern that they've got going down there is timing. So, you know, a lot of people want to get out there and catch those fish early in the morning this time of year. But the real key to catching these fish is the heat of the day. You know, right in the middle of the day when that sun's high is when they're catching these bass. Because what it does is it positions these fish under these docks where it makes them a little more easy to target them. You know, they kind of concentrate more in more predictable locations like these boat docks so that you can catch them easier actually when the sun's up and it's hot out there. So if you stand in the heat, get out there and go fit the docks or two when the sun gets high, you catch a good creature bait and you just might get a big one. And then if you like the two-species approach, you can start the morning by catching white bass. My buddy down there, Simon Costa with Get the Net Guide Service, has got the hookup on that deal. He says that the mornings are really good on the south end of the lake for some schooling action. And then once the sun gets up, if you want to stick with them, just pull out a little deeper to the main lake points and humps. And out there you can use either deep diving crankbait or slab spoons to catch those white bass and some bigger hybrids. And I've got a photo there for you guys of some of what Simon's been catching. Big table full of white bass and some bigger hybrids you can see there. They're just having a blast catching those things. So get out there and check them out. And then heading north a little bit up to Sam Rayburn, man, it's still just a bass fisherman's dream at that place right now, even with this kind of tough late summer conditions we've got going on. There are still several patterns that are working well on that lake. but my favorite is still the grass. Fishing about 4 to 6 feet deep over that hydrilla. And for that, I'm using swim baits and jigs mostly. Early in the morning when the fish are kind of roaming around near the surface, I like to slow roll that swim bait in like a shad pattern color, just right over the top of the grass, just kind of sticking the top of that hydrilla. And then when the sun gets up, I go to that 1 ounce Stanley Big Nasty flipping jig, and I just drop it right down in the middle of that thick stuff, right in that matted hydrilla, and you can catch some good fish doing that. That'll get you some bigger bites. Bluegill colors are my favorite for the jig, and, it's just kind of a patience game. You just got to cover a lot of water flipping those mats until you find where those fish are concentrated. Another pattern that's working real good for me over on Rayburn is fishing a red bug trick worm in about 10 to 15 foot of water out on creek channel ledges, kind of out in front of those grassy bays. Some of those fish that decided to pull out from the grass, some of them didn't go very far. They just pulled out to the first good ledge that they come to. So look at the turns in those creek channels and places like that where you got a good, solid 10 to 15 foot, like a sharp drop. Maybe set your boat out in about 20 and cast up into about 10. That's a good deal to do. And you never know what you're going to get when you get out there. You got a real mix of size of fish out there. You might catch a 2-pounder or you might catch a 10-pounder. You never know. So just get out there and pull on some and see what you come up with.
Tell me, do you got a photo here of the white bass?
Yeah, I got a photo there of some white bass with some big hybrids mixed in as well.
My bad. I was looking down. I didn't see that they put it up on the screen, so my apologies, Matt. All right, we're going to go ahead and take a look at the hot spots. Thank you so much. Lake Livingston, black bass are biting creature baits on the docks, and white bass are in big schools from the surface to 25 inches biting spoons. And then Sam Rayburn bass are biting jigs and worms in the grass on all the ledges.
You still on vacay in Alaska or what?
Yeah, man.
Yeah, welcome back.
I'm like trying to get in the groove, man. I just, you know how it is. Nobody wants to work.
It's okay. Captain Chad Kinney is now on the line in the Lower Coast region with good inshore and offshore news for y'all. So listen up. Hey, Chad.
I tell you what, everything's going excellent. The bait fishing's going good. I've talked to people all over my region here, but offshore is really on fire. So starting out first here, the trout fishing been really good. Talked to some guys up in Baffin, says really good. Surf fishing's been really excellent on trout and redfish. Offshore, like I said, has been really good, especially in some blackfin tuna and plenty of kingfish action going on. I talked to Captain Doug Stanford, he has Pirates of the Bay charters there out of Corpus, and he fished Baffin quite a bit. He said Baffin's really been holding some good numbers of trout there. Trout are holding good right there just south of Pita Island. Piggy perch, he says, really working the best on that. Some live piggies. Free line these, best way to do that, like a 25 to 40 pound leader, 5 to 7 ounce tail hook, depending on the size of that bait there. But right this time of year with the piggies starting to show up, probably about a 5-aught. And top waters are working really excellent early in the morning also like that. He says he's been using some Rapala skitter walks, working really early. And then as the day later goes on, he'll even switch to some croakers on that stuff. And then over around Emerald Island, he's been catching some big reds up to about 40 inches, he said. And the bigger bull reds starting to school. And he also told me, like I said, plenty of action in the surf. If you're fishing the surf, definitely try to get some calmer conditions, 3 foot or less, 2 foot's even better. Trout and reds are showing up there, and there's big bulls by the jetties on live mullet, menhaden, cut bait and stuff like that. So he sent me a nice picture of some bull redfish there that he got there. Moving over, got some pretty neat stuff that I haven't talked about here in the last year or so, but triple tail. They're not very common down here in the lower Laguna Madre, but they are around. Usually you find them in deeper waters and stuff. Normally I see them kind of offshore. Corpus area, you can see them sometimes in your bay in the deeper stuff. But down here in the lower Laguna, we don't see them. But you'll find them around that floating structure, debris, and they'll usually be under there, in the shade, kind of feeding on small bait fish or anything else. If you're throwing plastics, try any replica. You got like a live shrimp, pitch to it. Small live shrimp works really, really well. So even dead bait or cut shrimp, the only thing you want to do is make sure you get a small hook in they get leader shy too like that, so just kind of pitch to them and do really good. Got a client of mine that shared this picture with me. It's Regina Hernandez, and she said this triple tail is over 29 inches.
Wow. Whoa.
That's some good dinner there, Bubba.
That was a tank. I hadn't seen one that big in a long time. She caught that one out of South Padre Island, actually, right off the ICW on a pole there. So moving over to the offshore, like I said, this time of year it's on fire. Anything you possibly want to think about, everything's going on out there. You can get kings, tuna, dorado, wahoo, snapper, billfish. It's all going off. Talking about the blackfin tuna, they're definitely out there right now. There's some good numbers. Look for those deeper shrimp boats, about 150 foot or better. throw some smaller purple Rapala divers on your flat lines. And I like running the cedar plugs, rig with some squid rings down the middle, and kind of run them a little bit longer than your normal stuff. Tuna like it out a little bit longer behind the boat like that. And the reason I run 3 lines on this, not because they're going to break off or anything else, but you can maneuver around those shrimp butts quicker, especially if they're dragging you. If they're dragging, work the sides, both sides, port, starboard, work the back, find out where the fish are at, look at your sounder, see where you're getting the most action at, and then concentrate on that side where they're at. As the day gets later, those fish are going to sound deep. You can kind of look at your sonar and find that too, where of course, when you stop getting knockdowns, and switch over some Williamson jigs, get up behind those boats, 3 to 5 ounce flutter jigs. You might have to drop it down and rip it through there and get it down to 100, 150 foot where we find the bait in the tuna. Also, you can sure chum them up with those. If they're anchored up at all like that, guys, get behind her and take some extra chum with you from any bait shop and throw a bunch out, and you'll get them coming back to the top and get them back surface. You got a picture of a nice blackfin tuna there. It's about the average size we've been catching. And then moving on to kingfish, like I said, they're everywhere, from the jetties to shallow shrimp boats, deeper structure. Throw some shiny Rapala divers at about 5 to 8 knots, and make sure you use some wire there. I like using about 124 pound. Do a haywire twist on it. Or if you anchor over structure, then try some ribbon fish free line behind the boat. Works really well. If you need to float it out there, you can attach a balloon to it and kind of stretch it down about 20 feet and let free drift out the back there. Works really good. Take plenty of chum along if you're going to use this type of action. With that, it'll keep the fish engaged and stuff like that, and make sure your drags are preset. So when you get that big rip on that kingfish, first of all, sometimes they hit it so fast and hard they're hooked on the sides. Make sure you don't have the drag set too hard where you can pull those hooks on them. You got a picture from last weekend from the ladies kingfish tournament, and got a couple 30-pounders there that we weighed in.
How'd you do?
Nice.
We got second on the kings and stuff like that, good there, but it was kind of rough on the other stuff. We got caught in some nasty weather.
All right. Well, at least you were in it. You can't win it if you're not in it. So good job, man. We'll go ahead and take a look at the lower coast hotspots. And Chad says, inshore, trout fishing has been good in Baffin Bay. Surf fishing has been excellent for trout and redfish. And then offshore has been good for blackfin tuna. And there's plenty of kingfish action.
Regardless of what you catch, it's always fun being on the boat.
Yeah,
Come
man,
on.
Bam Bam had 2 big kingfish.
Exactly, that was perfect. All right, we're checking in with one more captain in the lower fresh region next, but we have some new products to show off at the CCA workbench, right, Dave?
I think this matches my shirt.
Oh, that's
Christmas
so
in
pretty. I
Isn't that
love
nice?
it.
It's very nice.
Very nice. We'll be back with nice things like that.
The Texas Insider Fishing Report is brought to you by Rapala. Catch the latest at rapala.com. YETI, built for the wild. Building Conservation Trust, CCA's National Habitat Program. StarTron, cures and prevents ethanol fuel problems. And Casa Vieja Lodge, 5-star angling in beautiful Guatemala.
When you've got an incredible opportunity in front of you, you want a Yamaha VMAX SHO behind you. Just ask 2017 Toyota Bassmaster Angler of the Year, Brandon Polinick. He'll tell you, if you're an aspiring angler with big dreams and a VMAX SHO, there's no limit to what you could achieve. Light, fast, fuel-efficient V6 performance and Yamaha reliability that lets you focus on your game. Nothing pushes you like a Yamaha VMAX SHO.
That's all we need. We need next quarter so that we can postpone it to everyone.
Yeah? Stop working right now! Look outside. Is this spreadsheet weather? No, it's not. This is fishing weather. So stop clicking, get out there, and catch a bass. Stop what you're doing and start fishing Rapala Ripstop.
Thanks for tuning in to the Texas Insider Fishing Report. Be sure to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter and Instagram to keep up with our captains, contests, and appearances. You never have to miss a show. You can find full episodes as well as special segments right on our homepage. Just head to TexasInsiderFishingReport.com for everything you need to know to stay hooked up.
So Dave, here at the CCA Workbench, we talk about new products every week, and I see you have a bunch of them.
Yes, we do. Well, we're going to start off with the CCA landing and wading net. You know, you can use it for both because it comes in half in the middle, right? You got the wade version right there. You don't have a big old handle in the way. got a little short
I
handle.
like that the handle's floating too. You can feel how light it is. This clips to your belt, obviously.
Yep. Or you can just use it to hang the net at the home.
Hang it at home.
At the house, when you're putting it up.
It's nice though, Dave. You know what? I mean, I like that it's a small mesh.
Small mesh, rubber coated for extra durability and to keep the fish a little safer in there. It's got a 15.5 by 20 inch hoop size.
It's a big hoop.
It's a big hoop, and it's pretty deep too. It's got the exactly.
And then you can.
You're a full scoop.
Yeah, I'm a full scoop. And you
Evidently.
can screw the net handle.
Correct. Put the handle right on there, and it's actually got laser etched markings on there by inches, so you can even go ahead and measure it out. See if it's good enough to keep after you put it in the net.
Stringer.
Correct.
So where do we find this net?
Yeah, at Academy. Yeah,
it's a CCA product. And remember, guys, when you buy any CCA product at Academy, some of the proceeds goes back towards conservation.
Right.
So it's your way of participating.
Yep.
All right. They can go online and order it, as well as go to an Academy store and buy it.
Next, we've got some new, you already heard one of our fellas mention it. This is the new bait from Bass Assassin, a creature bait called the skunk ape.
Skunk ape.
Yep, and it, you can do that if you want to, or you could leave those paddles fused if you'd like, because that thing is, it's a big profile, would move a lot of water. It's perfect for a trailer on a big spinner bait or a big jig head, or even by itself with just a swim jig in it.
You can rig this Texas too. Is this with the slit?
Correct.
Right?
Yeah. Or Carolina rig. You can do just about anything with it, and anything that'll lead a big, bug is going to eat that.
I heard
thing.
one of the fellas when this first came out won a major tournament on Lake Toho in Florida, which is in Kissimmee.
Well, I'm gonna have to start throwing it.
32 pounds.
Well, I'm gonna have to start throwing that thing a little bit more.
That's not a bad stringer.
But yeah, it's get one of those skunk apes because it moves a lot of water. It's got the liquid salt impregnated. When they grab a hold of it, they don't let go. It comes in a lot of variety of different colors. The ribs on there actually, push water as well.
I like that color.
I like the little glow colors on the end too. Yeah. That'll give it, especially in that dark water.
Bass bling, baby.
Yeah,
Bass
that's
bling.
exactly right. Well, next we got some cool things that Brie actually brought these in. Yeah, these are called from Tropicality. It's beach sand collection, and these are all kinds. They have a lot of necklaces and bracelets.
Thanks,
I couldn't think of what a bracelet was.
Well, it's because you wear so many.
Exactly. And what's the special thing about these is they get little bits of sand from different beaches. You can actually send them some sand from a special beach you got married on, beach you had your first kiss on, whatever beach that you were on, and they'll make a little bauble out of it for you. They'll make a little bracelet or a necklace and put it into you. And then all these have a little place where the sand came from on here. This was from Surfside Beach in Surfside, Texas.
Nice.
Right.
So it's a memorabilia sand
Correct.
bracelet.
It's not only just a cool little thing, but you can actually get a little chunk of the sand from a special place, and they will make a special one for you.
This is like, Dave.
Great gift.
I'm like your Valentine in August over here.
Yeah, exactly. You're very sweet. Very sweet.
All right, what you got?
All right, well, these are really cool. These are called the Yozuri 3DBs, and these are a spinner bait that uses a ball, and I've never seen anything like these. I was in the Academy today, and I was thinking, what is that? These look pretty cool, and they're called a knuckle bait. And what that knuckle ball does, instead of acting like a spinner, it's going back and forth all around, because it's round. And they got the prism ones like that, or they have these that have these have the little rattle in them. The painted ones have a little rattle in them. So that thing, yeah,
Dave.
Exactly, and it's really weedless.
I'm tinking.
What?
So check it out, Dave. This is my little brain working. We go to Louisiana for the Redfish Championship.
Oh, yeah.
So what if we were to take a skunk ape and put it on this
jubilator
here? But remember, crustaceans make clicking sounds because of the legs.
Correct.
So now, listen. We have the clicking, clacking of our little crustacean going through the water. I'm going to obviously split the face here.
Right.
So his claws are bouncing. I wonder.
This is the crickly one. That's the prism one.
Oh, this is the noisy one here.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Hear that?
Yeah, man.
Yeah, man.
Sounds like
Dave,
a scrimp.
I think this could be something new. Don't tell anybody though.
Right, we already did.
Oh shoot.
Yo, Zuri 3DB knuckle bait.
Don't tell anybody, just the entire state of Texas now knows.
Yeah,
So
now
it's
they
fine.
all know.
It's fine. I was gonna say you could put, your best catch or your first fish. That would be a cool thing to put in these little ditties right there.
Yeah. I was going more romantic.
You were. I'm proud of you, Dave. Guide Matt Reed is our closer today in the itty bitty Yeti Lower Coast region, focusing on Fayette County, LBJ, Marble Falls, Inks, and Canyon Lake, as well as Lake Falcon. Tell the people what they want to hear, Matt.
All right, let's get this thing rolling.
All right.
I've got a little ground to cover.
Yes, you do.
I'm going to start out like I always do, talking about largemouth bass. Let's kick it off at Fayette County this week. It's been fishing very consistent lately. The fish, the most of the fish are on the offshore structure, on the drop-offs out in that 15 to 20 foot of water, catching those fish on a Carolina rig and a drop shot. Best colors of plastics on those presentations have been watermelon, June bug, and red bug. You also can catch some fish flipping the trees with a dark color creature bait. 3/8 ounce weights has been the best size to get it down and then make a proper presentation. There's also some scattered grass around, and you can catch the fish on a square bill and a rattle trap throwing around the isolated patches of hydrilla. That's what's been going on at Fayette. Going to move on over to Lake Somerville. It's like most of our South Texas lakes. The water is just steadily falling. We hadn't had that much rain. We're losing water all the time. So the bass have been fairly good out on the rocky points and isolated brush piles. Most of that is in that 12 to 18 foot of water. You can use dark colored worms on a shaky head, also a football jig. Another way they've caught some really big fish lately is throwing a big deep diving crankbait around those brush piles. That crankbait is probably as good a way as there is to catch that oversized fish, get you a really big one. You want to move on up to the Austin area. Like the LBJ has been fishing pretty well. The best way that they've been catching them lately is skipping jigs under the docks, or either skipping a Cinco on a lightweight wacky rig hook up under those docks. Fish real slow, right now during the heat. Let's concentrate on the shade. Those fish will be under there getting out of that sunlight. Another way they're catching some of the LBJ is around the hydrilla, just throwing a Texas rig worm with a real light weight and working it slowly through that vegetation. Lake Marble Falls and Inks Lake are fishing pretty much the same way. The best way to catch some fish there right now is throwing a ribbit frog. Just throwing it and covering them as much water as you can in that shallow water along the rocks and any type of wood cover. Just reel that ribbit frog at a nice steady pace and listen to it gurgle and hopefully watch it get blown up. Later in the day, you're going to want to switch to a football jig, work those deeper ledges and points. If they don't bite that, you can also catch a few on light line and a shaky head with a trick worm. Moving on down the road to the Canyon Lake. They've been catching fish up to 5 pounds early in the morning up till about mid-morning on buzz baits up the river around the grass. That's been the best bite to catch a big one. Later in the day out on the main lake, there's fish in those brush piles at 15 to 25 foot of water. Out on those deep ledges, drop shot plastic and a green pumpkin has been the best way to get those deep fish to bite. Then way on down south at Falcon, I'm down here right now as I spend most of my time, and the numbers have been really good. And every day we're having a few big fish thrown in the mix. Some days you catch a whole bunch of big fish. Best way to catch them has been on Carolina rig soft plastic or a drop shot out on a rock structure. You can also catch them throwing a big crankbait. Crankbait colors or, the chartreuse patterns are always the best. The soft plastic colors, I like the plums and the plum apple, something in a red shade. That's how you get it done down here right now.
So why don't you tell me about the white bass there, boss? You got a photo first. I'm sorry.
That's just one of my customers from last week with a big old Lake Falcon special. It always makes them smile when they get a hold of one like that.
That'd make me smile too. All right, now tell me about the white bass.
The white bass down here are just kind of going crazy right now. Every point, rock hump, they're really concentrated. I can look out across here now and you see huge flocks of seagulls on the schooling whites everywhere. So all you got to do is chase the birds, get you a slab spoon or a shad color crankbait, and get out there. You can catch your limit in a hurry.
Tell me about this photo, Matt.
Well, that's just a little nice little quick box of white bass to have you a meal for dinner.
All right, thank you so much. We're going to go ahead and take a look at the hot spots from the lower fresh region. Matt said Fayette County Lake largemouth bass have been consistent on crankbaits and soft plastics in 15 to 20 feet. The main lake humps and drop-offs are the ticket in the lower fresh region.
All right, guys, well, there you have it. We know it's hot, so get out there in the early morning and the late evening, catch those fish up, send us your pictures, and we're glad to have you back, Rick.
Well, I'm
Dave,
glad to be
good
back.
job tonight.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. You did a really nice job on that jewelry. I'm proud of you. I know that was hard. I had to scream at you from across the studio.
I couldn't figure out what a bracelet was.
I know. Go figure.
Yeah.
And you have a daughter, too.
Well, I just bought my wife a nice bracelet.
Good for you. I'm proud of you.
No.
Rubies?
No.
Sapphires?
No.
Emeralds?
I think it was stainless steel.
Oh, that's nice.
Boy, that was
It's a gator one. It was an Alex and Ani bracelet.
Oh, that's good.
With a gator on it,
And
because
you
Jack's going to Florida now.
Oh, he transferred?
He transferred from
Back to
FSU
school.
to Gators.
Did he go yet? Back
Very
to school?
happy.
And they're going to let him in?
Yeah, he's in the band.
Oh.
Pride and Sunshine.
Woo! All right, guys, back to school.
See you next
We'll see you
week,
next
guys.
weekend. Thanks for tuning in.
Wow.